Hey everybody, happy Monday! Today I'd like to talk about 10 things that I've learned from going to the fish store. Okay, so this is kind of funny. I just went to a fish store and Jason wasn't with me. I went to Wisconsin for a couple days to visit my sister and I wound up in a fish store on the way home. That's kind of funny. So I've realized the number of fish stores that I've gone to, I have learned 10 different things. Some of them are very surprising. The first is when you go to a fish store, frequently they have at least one tank with just plants. That's one of my favorite tanks to look at, probably because I love plants. Here in our fish room, we have a number of tanks, and those of you who have a lot of tanks, you'll understand this. You're always looking for more plants. Well, we keep our storage of plants in the snail tank, which they keep it very clean. However, it's getting a little crowded. So my first idea is I would like a tank dedicated purely to plants. It will be a plant tank. The next thing that I learned is there is nothing wrong with a sparsely decorated tank. Some of my favorite tanks to watch, you could really see the fish because it was very sparsely decorated. It had the same kind of rock, maybe 2 or 3 pieces, larger pieces, sometimes not even any plants, and it really allowed the fish to stand out. And some of those, I would say some of those tanks I looked at the longest. And if you have, like we do, a number of tanks, it takes a lot of pressure off to have all of your tanks fabulously scaped. Make it absolutely amazing every single time. You know what? Just have a few tanks where you don't have to worry about it and you can just enjoy the fish in there. Now this next point might be a little obvious. Maybe it's just myself talking to myself. But the tanks at a fish store are so nice to look at because, well, they're clean. So maybe if you find yourself stressed out at home looking at your tanks, it could be like me, some of the tanks don't look their best, and I don't really like to look at them when they're not their best. So for me, it's a good refresher. Keep my tanks clean and I'll enjoy them that much more. Number 4, I find when I go to a fish store, they have different substrates on all their tanks and different backdrops. They have different combinations, especially at Aquatics Unlimited, which is one of my favorite fish stores to go to. And surprisingly, I find that to be way more interesting to look at the tanks than if all the substrates were the same and very uniform, which is actually very surprising to me because I have relatively uniform look in all of my tanks. So that's something that I learned. Point number 5, try a variety of different shapes or sizes of tanks. At least be open to it. A lot of the tanks that I currently have, I first saw in a fish store. Number 6, sort your hardscaping and make it easily accessible. We've already done this in our garage. We've designated, well, probably about a quarter of the garage to hardscaping materials. And if you sort it by type, by size, it makes it way easier to see what you have and what you might need when you're at a fish store like I was today. Number 7, visit fish stores to get scaping inspirations. Some of the coolest tanks that I just saw, I don't think I would have looked up on the internet anywhere, any of these styles, any of these biotopes. But when I saw them in person, it opens up a whole new realm of different scaping options that I would not have considered. And now I'm kind of excited to copy them here. Number 8. I don't know if you've noticed this, but ponds are everywhere, especially at the fish stores. Now at Aquatics Unlimited, they have a very nice setup in the store with 4 ponds and actually benches all around, which brings up 2 points. 1, I really apparently enjoy looking down at a tank, not only into a tank, but down into a tank. It gives a completely different vantage point. That's probably why I like the low boys so much and why I'm really on a hunt for a small low boy. How fun would that be? The second point is they put benches right by the pond so you can sit and appreciate your tanks. So if you have tanks, make sure that you have seating right close to your tanks at an appropriate level so that you can appropriately view your fish. We have a lot of tanks in and around our house where they're maybe not the most optimal height, etc., etc. So keep that in mind wherever you're going to put your tank or your pond, what have you. Make sure you have seating that you can fully appreciate your tanks. Number 9, I also learned from the ponds, they have a waterfall. I personally think, Jason doesn't know this yet, but I really think that the sound of water, like a waterfall, really adds to the hobby. So if you have tanks, be it one tank, a bunch of tanks, I think that a waterfall somewhere, the sound of water, really adds to the enjoyment of fish keeping. We'll see what he says about that. Number 10, if you're considering a different kind of substrate than what you normally use, like I use black sand 95% of the time. If you're considering maybe a black and white mix or a color mix, what have you, go to the fish store. They're probably going to have at least one tank decorated with it, and you can see what it looks like up close in person, especially if you are going to have a colored backdrop, what have you. This fish store had so many different options: teal backgrounds, blue backgrounds, white backgrounds, and then the different color substrates. Some of these matches I don't think I would have even considered in the past. Teals, some of them were actually quite striking, especially with the fish that they put into them. So before you pick up that bag of black and white or teal or whatever, look at your fish store, see the tanks that they have it displayed in, and maybe you'll either say, yeah, I want it, or no, I don't think I want that. So I hope you found some of these tips helpful, and if you've ever learned anything from a fish store, make sure you leave a comment down below, and have a good day. Hey everybody, happy Monday. Today I'd like to talk about 10 things I've learned from the fish store, from going to the fish store. 10 things I've learned from the fish store, from fish stores. That's so dumb. All right, I can't, I'm having a hard time with this. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Substrate. Really gives you a better vantage point. Oh, that's so dumb. I can't